This film is dedicated with admiration to the over 4,000 women, men, and children who have lived at the Ladd Center. A society is best judged by the manner in which it treats its most vulnerable members. Best Judgement, Ladd School Lessons. During the 1970s, the Ladd Center, Rhode Island's institution for those people judged to have intellectual or developmental disabilities, held an annual 4th of July parade for the town of Exeter.
I don't know if we were circus clowns or what. They would shy off like they was afraid they was gonna catch something.
Parents see difference. A child doesn't see difference as much. The parent feels as though that person is, either they're afraid of that person themselves, or out of the best of intentions don't want their child to bother that person. So they pull the child away. We don't talk to those people, is the message that that child gets. We just have a lot of problems with differences and understanding differences and placing value on differences.
Back in 2008, I was teaching a documentary film course at the University of Rhode Island that focused on the Ladd Center, or Ladd School as it's commonly known. The goals of the class were to research the history of the institution and to then produce a trailer that summarized that history.
The Rhode Island School for the Feeble-Minded opened in January 1908, when Dr. Joseph Ladd and 8 teenage boys moved into a farmhouse in the town of Exeter. The institution was renamed the Exeter School and later the Joseph Ladd Center before closing its doors in 1994. The intervening 86 years contain a story of good intentions twisted by misconceptions, of erroneous theories leading to indifference, neglect, and abuse. But it's not a simple story. Villains are hard to identify, and there were many who struggled to improve conditions at the institution. Finally, it is a story that is remarkably similar to the stories of other state institutions throughout the country.
During the second semester, my students arranged a meeting with Advocates in Action Rhode Island, a statewide self-advocacy organization founded by people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Self-advocacy or advocacy can be different things to different people, but for me, it's about speaking up for yourself. It's about making a difference for other people that might come after you.
That meeting proved to be a real watershed for the project. You know, it changed everything by introducing us to former residents of Ladd and other people dealing with disabilities. After the course ended, I continued working on the project with one of my students and several members of Advocates in Action. Another trailer featured a brainstorming session with former Ladd Center residents.
And so what we want to know is when people in the audience turn on the TV, when they see the movie come on, what's the first thing they should see?
We can start with my butterflies opening, and then from there we can go, and then we can talk about other things.
Actual buildings. The buildings? Yeah.
That'd be better that way.
That's a good
the way
idea.
here, we know. We know because we already in the film anyway, you know?
The buildings.
If I had been born 30 or 40 years earlier, I probably would have ended up as a resident at LAD or a similar institution. But I was lucky. Things are much better today. Unfortunately, there are many who still attach a stigma to those of us with so-called developmental disabilities. For instance, most people would doubt that individuals like myself and Maggie and Joey and Jimmy could produce a competent and thoughtful film about the tortured history of LAD school. Well, we are going to prove those people wrong.
To make this film, we needed a trained production crew. Let's start with introduction. We'll start with you, Bob.
Hi, I'm Bob Bacco. I'm co-producer, co-director, and the star of the trailer.
So humble. You can also just say, hi, I'm Bob Marco, just one more, just so nobody else feels slighted. Which one?
Okay. Hi, I'm Bob Bacco. I'm co-producer, co-director, and star of the trailer.
This is kind of like a medium wide shot, right? It's kind of knees to head. And then we can move into a medium shot, medium close up, and close up. Good.
The worst thing that ever happened was when a teacher told me I wasn't capable of going to college. But then again, I also brought the acceptance letter back to her and had her read it.
A lot of times, people see me, and they see the wheelchair first, and they don't think I have a brain.
When I was a kid, still call me the R word all the time. It's just, I don't like it one bit.
I might say that, don't say the R word, cross it out. So you've got what's known as a deep focus shot. You've got everybody in the frame on all planes.
Yeah, wow, they're real.
Perfect, just stay
They
here.
really were testing.
Along with training and research, the crew reviewed material produced by the University of Rhode Island class.
At that time, I don't think you had any rights at all. Because who did you have to defend you? Who could you talk to? Who could you trust?
And we also collected footage from an earlier LAD Center documentary project.
So tell me a little bit about what you remember about LAD school, Charles. Give me.
No good. They beat the guys up.
Then it was time to begin shooting new footage.
It was routine that probably over half of the population at LAD, in most of the places, were not dressed until the 70s.
You get desensitized to the fact that I'm working in a ward with 35 adult men who are in all different stages of dress or undress.
We didn't have any privacy. We did not have any privacy. We did not have any privacy.
Ding, boom, ba 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 bum ba 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 bum.
Going beyond traditional documentary practices, we recruited veteran musician and songwriter Mark Cutler to work with crew members to create a musical commentary or chorus for the film.
Sounded good.
We teamed up with an improv troupe to punctuate issues and events from LAD Center history.
I'm 50 years old.
I'm 50 years old.
Willie, I'm not a kid anymore. Willie.
They weren't called clients, they were called kids. These are all adult men, and I was told to refer to them as kids.
I am not a kid.
I am not a kid.
We recorded crew discussions and debates.
But why do you think society, why do we still treat people with we see them as different and treat them as different? Like, why do we do that? I mean...
Debbie, if I had the answers on that one, I'd be rich. I'd be rich if I had the answer on that one.
And we put together a broadcast team. Crew member Andrew Whalen would handle the historical play-by-play, while co-director Bob Mako and myself would serve as color commentators, providing behind-the-scenes insights and reactions.
Throughout much of the history of Western civilization, people judged to have intellectual or developmental disabilities were often abandoned to die or consigned to poorhouses. In the best case scenarios, they were supported by the extended family units that typified rural and village life.
We know, for example, that Thomas Jefferson had a sister who was a little younger than he was who had developmental disabilities. And she remained at home and part of the community.
One early instance of government-sponsored support for an individual with a mental disability occurred in colonial Rhode Island.
In 1651, Roger Williams wrote to the Providence City Council and asked them to take care of this particular woman, Mrs. Weston.
I crave your consideration of that lamentable object, Mrs. Weston. In great measure, she is a distracted woman.
Distracted woman, what's that mean?
Kind of like another world.
That lady's in another world. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
Sounds good.
My request is that you take what is left of hers into your own hand and appoint some men to order it for her supply. This act may stand upon record as a public act of mercy, amongst the merciful acts of a merciful town.
Council appointed 6 men to provide care for Mrs. Weston.
Guardian angels.
Guardian angels, but they didn't really do a good job.
Yeah.
1 month later, Mrs. Weston dies after wandering naked in a winter storm.
Guardian angels fell down to earth. Show some mercy.
Misery. Misery Town.
Misery Town. That would be cool.
Ooh. Stop it. You made me change my words here. Show some mercy in a misery town. Show some mercy in a misery town. I just want to be myself. I just want to believe in me. The lady's in another world. Show some mercy.
Fast forward 200 years or so, it gets worse.
The eugenics movement develops with this idea that if we want to solve social problems, what we need to do is stop the breeding of human beings who are inferior and encourage the breeding of human beings that are superior.
The understanding of eugenics was that if you had people with so-called inferior genes or limitations of any type or stripe, that they would pass those limitations along. It was bad science. It was ignorant people.
And they did it in the name of liberal values, not conservative.
British philosopher Herbert Spencer suggested that the unfit should not be prevented from dying out. Harvard University professor Charles Eliot Norton took this further. He advocated for the, quote, painless destruction of individuals with mental deficiencies.
Like, you know, when your dog's old and you put it to sleep, he was saying, let's do that with people with disabilities so they don't make any more people with disabilities.
So a respected Harvard professor was advocating for killing people who had disabilities. That's outrageous, right? But where was the outrage? Certainly not in movie theaters, where audiences watched The Black Stork, a film that depicts a doctor denying life support to a baby judged to be defective.
It really was an awful, awful statement about our society. Just disgraceful.
Nazi Germany learned a lot about eugenics from American scientists and American proponents of eugenics. They were willing to take it further than we were.
As far as we know, the killing of people judged to have intellectual or developmental disabilities was never public policy anywhere in the United States. However, in the early years of the 20th century, an increasing number of people were being incarcerated in institutions.
State after state built more and more institutions, and they expanded the institutions that already existed.
In 1906, the Rhode Island State Legislature passed legislation to buy a farm called the Reynolds Farm in Exeter, Rhode Island, and subsequently hired a young MD from Massachusetts, Dr. Ladd, Joseph Ladd, to operate the school as a training facility, interestingly enough.
Born in 1876, Minnesota native Joseph Ladd earned a degree from Dartmouth Medical College in 1900. For the next 7 years, he worked at the Massachusetts School for Idiotic and Feeble-Minded Youth. In 1907, he was named superintendent of the new Rhode Island School for the Feeble-Minded.
Dr. Ladd came to Exeter with his wife, and they took over the farmhouse, the old Exeter farm, and they began building an institution.
By 1913, over 100 residents, called inmates, occupied newly built male and female dorms. Those inmates, judged the most capable, were put to work raising crops, tending livestock, and assisting in various institutional tasks. For the rest, there was little beyond repetitive physical exercise, which was, to quote Dr. Ladd, in many cases the only way to quicken the mental activity of the feeble-minded. Dr. Ladd recalls that when he appeared before a state budget committee in 1913 to request an appropriation for teachers, he was told bluntly that instead of teachers, there should be established an asphyxiation chamber at the Exeter School.
That almost sounds like a Nazi camp, really. So why would they want to kill people?
Admissions to the institution were either voluntarily initiated by family members or mandated by court orders.
Usually physicians, social workers, public health nurses in the community would tell parents, put your child there for the sake of your family and forget about them.
They all said the same thing. Just put them away and forget about them.
My mom thought it was going to be a good place for me to try and do things. She says, you have to go to Ladd. We can't take care of you, and this is the only place that's going to have to take care of you.
My mother brought me there because she didn't know how to take care of me. She put me on a stone and burned me a little on my side.
You know, you're back and forth from one place to another, foster home, to the children's center, foster home, to a children's center. And then when you get a certain age, nobody wants teenagers because they're rebellious. And then I went to court. I remember that, went to court. And then they said Ladd was the place to go.
Use your voice, because I love the way your voice sounds. And even if you stutter a little, that's cool too, because I love that too. So it sounds beautiful anyway, all right?
I've been seeing different colors. It feels like you belong. It seems so far away, but who belongs here? Maybe you can see me, but I cannot see you. Some people think I'm not here. You know I've been moved. It's not where you belong. It's not where you belong. It seems so far away. Who belongs here?
Who belong here?
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's nice. I belong here.
That's right, you do.
Here, not there.
Residents at the institution were categorized using the brand new Stanford-Binet intelligence quotient test. Though the test's creator, French psychologist Alfred Binet, had cautioned that it not be used as a definitive measure of intelligence, there were many who ignored his advice.
In the United States, it became very fixed, permanent. It became a way of labeling people. It became a way of differentiating people, and it became a way of subordinating people, ultimately.
Inmates scoring 0 to 20 are labeled for all time as idiots. Those scoring 20 to 60 are identified as imbeciles, and there is a brand new term for those scoring 60 to 80. They're called morons.
And once you were tested, that's who you were, in a sense.
On most film productions, there is one person who has the ultimate authority to decide what is included in the final cut of the film. For our film, I guess I assumed that I would be that person. Enter Quasimodo.
Are you gonna finish that drink? Only joking. Whoa, if I have to get closer, I can... My name is Quasimodo, and that's with a T. And I'm the grandfather, sort of founding father of the Big Nazo lab. Myself and a couple of my co-collaborators were invited to perform at the lad school, yeah. And the response was that people were so friendly and so warm and so interested in getting to know us that it was like we were hanging out, like we'd known each other for our whole lives, you know? And whenever people say that we're creepy or scary, I always say, hey, creepy's the new cool. Well, I'm tall and lean. I never feel mean. I'm about the happiest dancing fool that I have ever seen because I'm built for comfort. Watch this. Woo! I'm not built for speed. I got everything that a sweet mama's gonna need. Take it away while I do an interpretive dance.
Quasi's visit seemed to be going so well, and then I got carried away. What would you think about being part of this crew?
What? Me?
Yeah.
Part of this awesome crew?
Yeah.
Whoa.
You know, the film is about stigma. It's about people being looked at differently. This creature I saw as an opportunity to play with, to illuminate that idea and play with that idea.
Jimmy, I'm gonna put you in the hot seat. I hate to do it, but I'm gonna do it. The puppet like that, that's funny for kids. We ain't kids, we adults.
Quasimodo is just a fictitious puppet.
We're trying to talk about something that's serious, something that has to do with adults. We don't want to have a puppet in there.
I understand there's a whole persona. I understand that he's developed a persona and that some of his experiences as a puppet, he could relate to being treated differently, but he still gets to take his costume off.
You're not like us. I want somebody different. I better walk with the big bug on 95 that I am.
In 1917, a woman who had a farm on Block Island wrote to Dr. Ladd and asked, do you have any people that I could hire to work on my farm? And here's what Dr. Ladd wrote back.
I do not think we have any boy here at present who would be suitable for you. The great difficulty is that our boys who are fairly intelligent are likely to be light-fingered and undesirable in other ways, while the boy of lower grade would be unable to do work in a satisfactory manner.
The population of the institution continued to grow rapidly, fueled by an influx of young men judged to be moral delinquents, i.e. Dr. Ladd's light-fingered boys, and young women thought to be at risk of becoming sexually promiscuous.
Dr. Ladd, I know I haven't done right, but I can't see why everybody has to be mad at me. The reason my mother didn't care for me when I was home was because I was always jolly, always laughing and fooling around with the kids, and I tried to teach my sister to dance. Let them all say what they want about me because I'm not known in this world by anyone.
We do not look upon our girls as bad girls, but the simple fact is that it is a case of a child's mind in a woman's body, and no child is able to judge the proper course in matters sexual. It is highly undesirable to remove these girls from the institution until they are past childbearing age. Joseph Ladd, Superintendent.
And the truth of the matter is they were abused women. They were somebody who was abused by their family members or by a neighbor or by somebody else.
There was an alternative to the extended incarceration of these women.
Sterilization as a medical procedure would develop concurrently with eugenics and with the IQ test. And it seemed to be a way of solving social problems by ensuring that people with disabilities, especially morons who could get in trouble, did not continue to breed.
By the mid-1920s, 29 states had passed laws providing for the involuntary sterilization of individuals judged to be mentally deficient.
So they were fixing human beings the way you would fix a cat. That's outrageous, right? But where was the outrage? Not at the U.S. Supreme Court.
When the Virginia statute was challenged in 1926, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the state.
It is better for all the world that instead of waiting to execute degenerate offspring for crime, or to let them starve for their imbecility, society can prevent those who are manifestly unfit from continuing their kind. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough. Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, Jr., majority opinion.
You got all these pictures of women.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I like girls, Jimmy. Nothing wrong with that. It's not wrong with liking girls.
It don't make them any more like me. It's sure the paddle It's sure the paddle when it made me. That's it. That's all I can tell you. Brother, go ahead, brother.
How do you stay so positive, Jimmy?
Huh?
How do you stay so positive?
A lot of work. A lot of work. It takes a lot of work to be like me.
I was wondering if you do or did ever date at all?
Who, me?
Yes.
Well, you want to go to Biltmore? You want to go to Biltmore?
To its credit, the Rhode Island legislature does not pass a sterilization law. However, all is not well at the institution now called the Exeter School.
There's hundreds and hundreds of people there, and the original purpose of the institution, which is to train the trainable, get them out of there, return them to the community, has completely been undermined by a lack of state funding, a lack of direction, a lack of support, a lack of planning, a wealth of lacks.
And of course, the state never made investments that they should have been making in terms of health and medicine and developmental services and speech and language services and physical therapy and education and vocational training. The state had none of those people.
Providence Journal, December 30th, 1928. The Exeter School can be fairly described as a dumping ground. Exeter School Report, 1935. The condition of overcrowding has tended to increase the irritability of both the attendants and the patients. State Charitable Commission Report, 1943. The institution stands in urgent need of improvement in both personnel and plant. The situation is critical and must be remedied if disastrous consequences are to be prevented.
The elephant in these quotes is the question of the mistreatment of residents. Given the crowded, chaotic, irritating conditions at the institution, it is impossible to believe that residents were not abused by some of the staff and by some of the other residents who didn't know any better.
The institutions had a history of abuse and neglect.
The majority of people who lived at that institution and other similar institutions were victimized. They were physically and or sexually abused, sometimes on a regular basis.
But we don't know much about this abuse because very little information got out of the remote facility. They even managed to take this aerial photo of an institution that was busting at the seams at a moment when the campus looked deserted. Clearly, what happened at the Exeter School was meant to stay at the Exeter School.
Over the years, many Exeter School residents attempted to escape. The majority were apprehended quickly. Maggie Sebastian was more successful than most.
Hey Maggie, when you ran away, did you know where you were going to run to?
I wasn't sure.
And just get out of there, huh?
What was the furthest you got?
I got to Providence.
How did you get there?
We planned it and made our escape. You knew exactly when the staff was leaving. So when the second shift left, at that point, you don't care. Your adrenaline is pumping. So you just want to get away from it as far as possible.
Did you have any money?
We didn't have nothing. We just had a self.
Yeah.
We just wanted to be free. We was just walking and we was hungry. And then all of a sudden, I guess they called the police, so the police picked us up. We was in the jailhouse. We was in the jailhouse rock. You know, just from running away, I go, wow, we're like criminals.
Captured escapees were punished with periods of solitary confinement in isolation rooms collectively known as the Blue Room.
Nothing there, just the mat on the floor, and that's it. You didn't even know what day it was.
By the middle of the 20th century, many parents had begun to question the advice that they forget about their institutionalized children.
As people came back from World War II, and they were told, you know, your kid can't go to school. Your kid's not allowed to go to school. What do you mean you're not allowed to go to school?
The parents went on to form advocacy groups, notably the National Association for Retarded Citizens, or ARC. In Rhode Island, George Gunther was typical of parents looking for support for their children.
And I was seeking services for my own daughter, and soon found out there were few and far between, and what was available was extremely poor. Arthur Trudeau, who was one of the leaders at that time, asked me if I'd like to come to a meeting, and I've been going to meetings ever since.
The two most unpleasant locations in the institution were actually at the rear. There was a building housed for the men and a building for the women.
This is the way it worked. There was a sleeping ward, and there was a living ward, and there was a middle ward, a bathroom area, shower area. And the clients, when they got up in the morning, went through and were actually hosed down by the attendants and went into the living ward. And then when they came back, they'd be covered with feces and urine again.
In October 1952, the parents of Tindaro Pinto, a 9-year-old Exeter School resident, were notified that their son had died of complications from an epileptic seizure. The Pinto family was not satisfied with this explanation and urged state authorities to conduct an investigation. Finally, in 1955, the Rhode Island State Police looked into the case, and the true story emerged. On the day in question, Tindaro apparently created some sort of disturbance. As punishment, Mrs. Davenport, an attendant, directed her resident assistant, George Phillips, to place Tindaro in a laundry bag and to hang the bag from a shower head.
And the water dripped one drop at a time, one drop at a time, one drop at a time for hours. And this is a laundry bag, it was a rubber laundry bag. And it filled with water and he drowned. And they covered that up.
We can only imagine how many other questionable deaths were covered up over the years. Totally outrageous.
In November 1955, Mrs. Davenport and George Phillips were indicted on charges related to the death of Tindaro Pinto. Later that same month, Dr. Joseph Ladd announced his plans to retire. Dr. Ladd retired quietly, and Dr. John Smith, who was trained as an educator, took over as superintendent.
And so the question is, Dr. Ladd, was he a, quote, good man, an evil man, or somewhere in between?
He was nice to me. I don't have no problem with him.
So I would say Dr. Ladd is more like a crazy, mixed up kind of person.
I think Dr. Ladd is a evil man.
You know, I'm not prepared to say he was an evil human being. He was an ignorant human being.
Sadly, he was a man of his time, and of course, back then, they didn't know any good way to properly treat people with disabilities.
Probably the stuff he wanted to do, he didn't have enough money to do it.
I was just going to say that I don't think it's black and white. I think there's gray in there. So like maybe he had good intentions.
The place had started off with good intentions, then took a left turn somewhere, and that's his responsibilities.
That his opinions, his beliefs, his ideas became outdated.
He had to see the inhumanity of what was going on because there was so much of inhumanity around him.
In March 1958, Dr. Ladd was honored with a ceremony that renamed the institution the Joseph H. Ladd Center.
The Ladd School for the Mentally Retarded in Rhode Island is one of many centers in which the most modern facilities are being used constantly in this vital humanitarian effort. Such special centers as this are devising new methods of assisting the mentally retarded to participate more effectively in society.
In covering the story of the institution from the 1950s forward, we can rely on the testimony of living eyewitnesses, notably the Ladd Center residents themselves.
I did not like Ladd School at all. I've been there 38 years, and I was glad to get out of there. My awesome memory is all I own, and I'm all alone in my awesome memory.
Remember my first day, I was at the Foley Hospital. I was a little nervous.
They were not so good. They were mean to me.
I hate it.
It was scary.
You're scared that you think nobody's gonna like you. They think you're gonna be a terrible person.
I didn't get no sleep a wink. No sleep, period.
All I did is cry. Just cry, cry, cry.
I try not to think about that to me because it gets on my nerves, you know what I mean?
You don't want to talk
A constant reminder is torturing me. I have no place to hide in my house of memory.
The food was bad. The sleeping arrangements was bad. The beds weren't changed right. The toilets weren't clean. The bathrooms weren't clean. The sinks weren't clean.
The smell of it. Just the smell, you know.
The day room had hard benches. I mean, people couldn't even sit on them because they were so hard.
Everybody sleep in a room with a lot of bed in there.
You gotta watch out getting up, you know. Bump into people, bump into.
You didn't have any privacy, you know, anytime you went to the bathroom and anything like that.
No privacy. We didn't have no privacy whatsoever. Everybody throw everybody out stuff.
Fighting in the day hall at the Howell building. I can't stand the fights. I couldn't stand the fights.
I learned how to fight there. I never, got into a fist fight, never knew about fighting.
I didn't like it because a lot of fighting there and the food was rotten.
My house is a prison with memories around you. It's no place to hide in my house of memory.
They used to lay on top of me, a little kid. They did bad things to me, that.
They beat the guys up.
He beat you all the time with the belt. Okay.
This lady named Mrs. Fober, she gave me a terrible beating. And she threw me in the detention room and threw the hot food at me.
One of the attendants smacked me in the face. One of the attendants hit me right in the back.
They let them beat you up. They had a right to do it.
Staff used to make me use toothbrushes on the toilet.
They made you clean the toilet with the toothbrush?
Yeah.
If you were bad, they used to give you cold showers.
Like if you was sick, you'll wake up and you'll be in a straitjacket or your hands would be tied.
It never got better, Jim. Never.
Oh yes, in my house of memory.
And you had to either be a survivor or not survive.
Oh yes, in my house of memory.
That's it, baby. That is excellent.
It would be easy to demonize the Ladd staff.
Every staff in that place was treating us like dirt.
But it's more complicated than that.
If you're put in an area taking care of 70 or 80 people by yourself, you can't do a very good job taking care of people. Not possible.
You know, there was some nice people. I wouldn't say everybody was bad or everybody was unkind.
The great majority of people that I work with were sensitive, caring, and hardworking.
Some was good, some was bad. It was like half and half.
85 to 95% of our staff wanted to do a good job.
Most of the staff did not mistreat people. Most of the staff were really very decent people and tried to help people, despite the administrators and despite the politicians.
By the 1970s, there was considerable funding available to the LAD Center from federal programs and state bond issues. Improvements were made to the physical plant, and more staff was hired.
I came to work one Sunday in February 1973, and they'd taken me to Howe Building to show me where I would be working, and it was the shock of my life walking into that room. Immediately inside the door on the right-hand side against the wall was a table, and on top of the table there was a man lying there. He was half naked. He was covered with food. He was filthy, and he was smoking a corncob pipe. And he was just lying there. He saw me, and he jumps up and he says, "I'm going to hit the new guy."
Yow. My first day at LAD was pretty frightening. We walked into this locked ward, and I just remember so vividly the smell, the sounds, and was shocked by what I saw.
So the person I was with, he warned me, don't sit down unless you have your back to the wall. I asked him what I was supposed to be doing, and he said, you know, just hang around here. If there's any fights, break up the fights.
I quickly learned from the seasoned staff that a good day was a day when everybody was sitting around the day hall and not causing problems.
So there I sat with my back to the wall.
And I pretty much was in terror that whole first day, first shift.
As my assignment would take me to LAD school out of the Office of Mental Retardation, it became pretty impossible to continue to go down there without raising a little hell about it. So I would come back and tell my boss, Dr. Pelosi, about the horrible conditions at LAD, and usually those that went ignored. And one day I just sat down and wrote a fairly scathing memo to Dr. Pelosi, and he sent it up to Dr. Cannon, who proceeded to call me up, and I was pretty thrilled to be called all the way up to the director's office. Well, he sat me down and he said he had a solution for my problem with LAD school, and I asked him what it was, and he said, "Well, you're fired."
In his capacity as president of the Rhode Island ARC, George Nazareth toured the back wards of the LAD Center.
Nothing prepared me for what I saw when I went into the male dorm and the female dorm. People that looked to me like they were zombies. They had no life in their eyes. They didn't even know that I was there. I got into my car and drove to the Rhode Island State House, and it was Governor Leach who was governor, and I went into the office, and I said, "I'm staying here until I get to see the governor today." Finally, he let me in, and he did not promise that he would go see the back wards of LAD school.
Although Governor Leach did not visit LAD school, he did send George Gunther there.
At one time I was complaining to Governor Frank Leach about the conditions at LAD, and he's not doing enough and this and that. And he kind of offhandedly said, well, if you think you can fix them, why don't you go down and fix them? So I went as assistant superintendent. I encountered a whole culture of crass ignorance, lack of knowledge, lack of thinking it through, just doing it the way it's always been done. They said that when a child was admitted, that we're not going to allow any visitors for a month. They can't have any visitors, that mother, father thing, and the reason for that was given to me. These are things you discover when you get in there, is so they can get control of the person. They're going to bring them under control.
They call it lad logic. There was no reality, it was a different reality there.
For those judged to be capable of learning, basic classes were held in academics and the arts. And while there were some dedicated teachers,
Mr. Rossi, he was an old school teacher. He taught me how to write my name.
the results were, at best, mixed.
It taught me how to play blocks. I told one of the teachers, I said, I ain't gonna play no block with this thing. I wanna read, I wanna do my arithmetic. I wanna be smart. I don't wanna play blocks. That's no good.
The canteen had a soda bar, and they had sandwiches and all kinds of, just like a regular snack bar. And it was a place the clients loved to go.
Every once in a while you go there and you get something to eat or drink and you have a little dancing and all that kind of jazz.
That was a good time at the canteen.
Plus the movie house we had a beautiful movie auditorium. That was a social place on Friday nights.
Got the movies, got the canteen.
Mm-hmm. But Dr. Smith had begged for and finally got a swimming pool through donations.
I used to sing at Lad School. We used to play the drums. We used to dance over there. We used to have a party over there. We had a lot of fun over there. Yep, we had a lot of fun at Lad School. Yep. I hope I don't have to go back there. Never.
You didn't have celebrations there. I mean, even Christmas kind of wasn't on Christmas, or you just get candy for Halloween, or church was on Saturday. Everything was a little bit off.
Now, I mind my own business, okay? What happened was, this butterfly came out of nowhere. It was coming closer and closer and closer. And then I identified it. It was an orange and polka-dotted monarch butterfly. And guess where it landed? He landed on this shoulder. Now, when he landed on that shoulder, I had stood very, very quiet. I didn't want to make him nervous. Then he tickled my neck, and then he flew away. But when he flew away, I said to myself, I said, someday I'm gonna get my freedom.
They check your teeth if they need to be pulled. They would just do it without anything.
They put the thing on the dentist, pull my teeth, no one can.
You're screaming, you're yelling, nothing.
Jim Healy returned his attention to Lad School as executive director of the Rhode Island ARC.
One day I went into George Gunther's office, and he excused himself. And when he did, I always looked and read people's mail, so I saw this memo It was a letter. It was from David Greer, the dean of the Brown Medical School, to Joseph Bevilacqua, who was then the director of the department, and it says, if you don't close the Ladd Dental Clinic, there'll be a major catastrophe or death.
Several weeks later, Healy read the dental report at a closed ARC board meeting. Listening at a keyhole was a young Providence Journal reporter named Peter Pearl.
Peter Pearl was such a hound. He knew something stunk, and he never let up.
Over the next 18 months, Peter Pearl and his colleagues published dozens of front-page articles detailing the many problems at the Ladd Center. Meanwhile, in federal court, the Rhode Island ARC filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of Ladd Center residents, citing an array of problems at the institution. The new governor, J. Joseph Garrahy, moved to fire Superintendent Smith. He went on to import Dr. Robert Carl from Ohio to run the state's division for mental retardation. One of Dr. Carl's first actions was to appoint George Gunther chief operating officer of the Ladd Center.
First thing we did was devise a plan to upgrade the facility so everybody could live in a somewhat tolerable living situation.
But the duo had a larger goal in mind.
When I first went there, I intended to close it. I didn't know how long it would take me. I didn't care.
That was my objective when I went there in 1978. It's in the Providence Journal front page. My objective is to close Ladd Center.
In 1982, the federal court ruling on the Ladd Center class action suit was announced. It mandated a 50% reduction in the institution's population by 1984. This directive spurred the development of a group home system.
We created a solution which said that people would go live in the community. They would live in small, personalized places.
Group homes are community residences in which usually 4 to 8 individuals live with a 24-hour support staff.
Paula Montequela has lived in group homes since leaving Ladd School in 1986.
Paula, while she was in the institution and subsequently has ordered her life through taking charge of only those things that she was able to do. She has a lot of very specific routines and rituals and habits, and she will engage in those things repetitively. And I feel that that's one of her ways of trying to control just a little bit of her life, to get things just right in a small portion, because that's the only portion of her life that she could control.
Hoping to get Paula involved in the filmmaking process in some way, we invited her to an early planning session. It did not go well.
Jimmy, could you move over just a little bit? Joe, move
Joe.
sit up here.
When we tried to include her in the group, she immediately did something socially inappropriate that forced us to turn off the camera.
Yeah, she will do some shockers. It's almost Groucho Marxist. She's a lot of fun. She really is.
So I'll tell you something that's a little crazy here. I suppose you can have it because I could never tell anybody else. But if you're going to, I mean, I've told people, but you couldn't tell it publicly, but I'll tell you.
In 1986, Rhode Island Governor Edward DePreet hired a Virginia consulting firm to consider the feasibility of closing the Ladd Center.
They sent a guy in, I remember, I remember his name, and he interviewed a lot of people, took him a few weeks. And then one night in July, I remember getting a call from Ron DiOrio. It was 9:30, I was watching a Red Sox game. I was in my Bermuda shorts. He said, "You better get up here." So I did. And I went into his conference room, and he slid this document across the table, and he said, "Read it." So I started, he said, "No, read the back." And it was the recommendation not to close LAD. I said, "What are we going to do?" He said, "We're going to change it."
The report that reached the governor's desk recommended that the LAD Center be closed.
On July 29, 1986, Governor DePrete announced that LAD would close. We had 3,000 people at the E&R building at LAD, and he said, "It is my decision to announce the closing of the institution."
Over the next few years, the population of the institution diminished as residents moved into group homes and other assisted living situations. The last 4 residents left the LAD Center on March 25, 1994. Bob Carl declared that the beast is dead.
The concept of segregation and dehumanizing conditions was the beast. The concept that these people will not be treated like people, that was the beast.
I think we've come a long way in developing services for people away from the old institutional ideas. However, we've created our own mini institutions in many ways.
The problem is we've taken the old myths with us. We've taken the myths with us that filled the institutions. We just haven't filled the institutions again.
And I just think that we've become this, oh, aren't they cute? Oh, look at them. They should be, shouldn't they be happy that we got them out of institutions? And that is just, we should feel, our culture should feel ashamed of that part of our history. And we shouldn't be telling people, well, you're lucky you're not in an institution.
We've got to do this all over again. We've got to erase everything from our minds and begin to think anew. If we don't, we're stuck and we're really in trouble. And so are the people with disabilities.
I wish it was as easy as flipping a switch of you know, like, of knowledge and of enlightenment, I guess I'll say. I'll say enlightenment.
So where is that enlightenment switch? You know, what are we missing in the way that we treat people who have disabilities?
I think that Aretha Franklin has the answer to that question. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. We need respect. We need to be treated like people. People with all sorts of capabilities and some weaknesses. People with ideas and dreams and humor.
Maggie Sebastian was 25 when she left LAD school and moved into a group home. She might still be in the group home system if not for those people who respected her enough to recognize that she was a reliable, compassionate, patient individual. Just the type of person needed to provide support for people who have profound disabilities.
Here's the backyard and my little deck. Oh, yuck. Oh, I gotta shut this gate. I gotta shut this gate.
After a 25-year career supporting people who have disabilities for the South Kingstown school system, Maggie retired to the home she owns in Wakefield.
Coming out, I gotta cut this. Yeah. This is international metal, silver. This one was a unified, that's a gold.
In her basement, Maggie displays just a portion of the medals that make her, arguably, Rhode Island's most decorated Special Olympian.
Gold, silver, and bronze. Mostly gold.
most of those people are very attractive people. They're funny, they're joyous, they're all friendly, they've all got ideas, they've all got thoughts and opinions. They're just like you and me.
I think this understanding of, well, we're all people, and talk to me, and I will tell you I'm a person, and let me tell you about myself and who I am.
I feel different because I have Down syndrome. I talk. When I try to talk, I stutter by it. Yeah, but I write my feelings out into a song. Yeah.
For some reason I just collect butterflies. I'm just a butterfly freak. That's where I am.
It should be within everybody's space to be free and independent, what that means. But it may not mean the same thing to one person than another. But for me, as a wheelchair user, for example, I can be free and independent. A lot of people don't think I can be free and independent. They consider me bound and confined, and they consider me dependent because of an environment that might restrict me.
Let me know when.
Go ahead.
But I was lucky.
No, Bob, you're getting too dramatic. Match it down.
Not on stage.
You're not on stage. You're just talking to people that think like...
Among a variety of interests, Bob Mocco pursues an acting career that landed him a role in the film The Polka King, opposite Jack Black.
I'd describe her as a kind, loving woman who sometimes seems to be in another world. She'll kind of look up, and when she's doing that, I just feel like she's got her mind and her focus on something that I can't imagine.
I do the cooking, honey. I pay the rent, and
Watching Jimmy Eisen belt out a classic tune while pounding the beat on a table, it's clear that he was born to be a musical performer. But apparently no one with musical chops encouraged him to take it further, to polish his gifts and aim for a wider audience. No one, that is, until he met Mark Cutler. Mark, whose resume includes leading a band that opened for Bob Dylan on a national tour, treated Jimmy as a fellow musician. You know, he respected him as an equal, a peer, and Jimmy ran with it.
Who loved me anyway? You love me, Bill?
No.
No?
Who loves me?
Ding, dong, dong, dong. Somebody love you. Somebody me. Somebody love me. Who love me?
Do you drink beer or anything like that?
No, hey, are you all right? Just the one I drink right here.
I'm just asking.
No way.
Okay,
You ain't gonna get me drunk up. No. You ain't gonna get Jimmy drunk. You wanna try to get me drunk? I tell you ain't gonna get Jimmy drunk. Jimmy won't get drunk. Bum, 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 bing, bum, bum, bum. Ding.
Jimmy won't get drunk.
Write that down.
I like that.
I can't help but wonder what Jimmy might have accomplished in music if he had been acknowledged by somebody like Mark at age 17 rather than at 67.
I don't know any community more inclusive than the community of people with developmental disabilities. I don't know of one. I really don't. And I think we all can learn a lot from that.
I mean, I'm nice to everybody. You know what I'm saying? I'm nice to everybody. Everybody should be like me. Believe me when I tell you. You know?
I've been seeing different colors. It feels like you belong. It seems so far away, but who belongs here? Maybe you can see me, but I cannot see you. Some people think I'm not here. You know I've been moved. It's not where you belong. It's not where you belong. It seems so far away. Who belongs here?
Who belongs here? I won't come back. I will come back. I won't come back. Never come back again. I will come back. I will come back. I will come back. Never come back again, bang.
I know sometimes you feel like you don't exist. I know it's hard to find a place to fit. Life can be so precious, passion be flirtatious. A big whole world can be wide open. It's not where you belong. It's not where you belong. Seems so far away. Who belongs here?
Hello and welcome to Conversations with New England Filmmakers, where we speak with local filmmakers about their ideas, inspirations, and artistic processes. I'm G. Wayne Miller, more commonly found on this set as co-host of Story in the Public Square. Today I'm joined in the studio by Jim Wolpaw and Bob McCoe, co-directors of the film you just watched, Best Judgment, Lad School Lessons. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have to say, having watched the film, it's just an incredible piece of work. Blew me away. I think our audience for this will agree. It told us so much about the Ladd Center, but also about people who live there, people living today with disabilities, and much more. But Bob, do you want to just sort of give an overview of the film, and your role in it?
Well, Wade, actually, I pretty much been part of the film as the co-director of the film, along with Jim Wolpaw. Jim and I have been working together as a dynamic duo team of co-directors to make sure this film is actually more of a historical complex.
Jim, your take on the film. You have a long history here. The origins of this film go back quite a while.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, it's been a long journey, but it really started. We're dating it back to when I was teaching a film course at URI on documentary pre-production, and used LAD as the subject. For the film, and it's been going since then.
So when did it all come together for the version that folks just saw?
Well, it was slowly coming together for a long time, but it really started when Advocates in Action, which is a local organization for people that are dealing with various forms of disabilities, got involved in the project. That was after we had the course at URI, and we were really. Their main focus was on making it a film that tells the story of the people that lived at LAD, and so that became sort of the true north of what we were doing, and we just took it from there, and it took us in a lot of different directions, and it took a lot of time, but we finally did get it done.
So it's a nuanced film. I think that's the term that you folks use. A lot of horrible things happen at LAD, but there were also some good things that happened at LAD, which has been closed now for many, many years. Do you want to talk about that? You know, both the good and the bad? Bob, maybe you can speak to that.
Probably, I think the best part of the LAD Center, if you will, if I quote the word the best, is how people's lives can actually drastically change, if you will. Like from going through a tough time to a more happier time, so to speak. It's kind of like a period of growth, so to speak. From going through the challenges of the past to like growing up to where you are now. So that's why I like to call it the good times, if you will. The bad times is going through the torture of living there.
Yeah, and there was a lot of mistreatment, certainly in the later years, in terms of care of people there. Jim, just quickly, tell us about, it opened in 1908 as the School for the Feeble-Minded.
The Rhode Island School for the
Rhode
Feeble-Minded.
Island School for the Feeble-Minded, and Joseph Ladd, Dr. Joseph Ladd, opened. Just very quickly about how that all came to be. A lot of this is in the film, but let's just hear it from you, too.
Well, the state legislature decided that they needed a place to send people, basically. And they, in 1907, or I think in 1906, they authorized the founding of LAD, and it was open for 94 years. And the name changed a couple of times. Ultimately being named after Joseph Ladd, who was the superintendent for the longest period of time. To me, what really intrigued me was the fact that there were a lot of good people that worked at LAD.
Right.
And I met a lot of good people that worked at LAD. And at the same time, it's considered like a snake pit, you know, so.
Right.
You know, who were the villains? You know, why did it end up that way? And that was a lot of what we were trying to do with the film, is trying to figure out where we, you know, how the place ended up being what it was. And we never got a really good answer for that, except that the people generally are good and try to do a good job. And if you're put in a situation where you don't have the resources to do it, you can't do it. And of course there were people that would be considered villains, but it was really an effort to by the people that, by most of the people that work there to make it a livable situation.
It closed in 1994, and I had written for many years for the Providence Journal about LAD. I happened to be there on the last day when the last resident was discharged. And Bob Carl, who was one of the key people in getting it closed, said, quote, "Nazi Germany killed these people. Rhode Island made a commitment to treat them with dignity and respect." Powerful quote. Talk
Yeah.
about Bob Carl. He is in the film too, of course.
Yeah, I mean, he really turned things around. There was a big scandal in the late 70s, and he was hired to come in and really turn things around at LAD. And he did. You know, he said, you know, he says that when he came in there, he wanted to close the place. And he ended up closing it.
Yeah.
It was not an easy thing to do.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but Bob, Jim, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, I'll speak to a former resident of the LAD school who played a prominent role in the film and a friend who worked at the school. Stay with us. We are back. Right now, I'm joined by two new guests associated with the film we're discussing today, Best Judgment, LAD School Lessons. Maggie Sebastian is a former LAD school resident with a long history of supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. She is joined by her friend and supporter, Joanne Melise, who once worked at the LAD school. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
So, do you want to just start, Maggie, with, I mean, how long did you live at LAD?
25 years.
25
Since
years.
I was 15.
Since you were 15. Wow. How did you wind up there? Do you remember?
Well, first I went to, let's see, court. No, they took me to court.
They took you to court, yeah.
And then the judge says that I had to go to LAD.
But just like that?
Just like that.
You were shipped off?
I didn't have no choice.
No choice at all?
No.
Where were you living when this happened?
Let me see. Children's Center, I was there.
Okay.
And then when I turned 15, then I went to LAD.
Wow. So, Joanne, you worked at LAD. Just give us sort of a brief overview of your employment there.
LAD was my first job out of college. You know, graduate with a bachelor's degree in family development, human studies. Really didn't qualify you for much. I had friends that worked there. So in January of '77, I took a position working direct care, second shift, male dorm. And I worked there for about a year and a half, took a promotional position as a program aide, and within a year took another promotional position as a state social caseworker. So I was involved with helping people at that point leave LAD. So I started my career at LAD after Maggie had already left.
Okay.
And if I can add a little to Maggie's story,
Yeah, sure.
Maggie, she lets me tell her story, was taken away at birth from her mom and was in and out of foster cares and children's homes. Before at 15, they put her there, and I think it was because she had a couple family members that were there. No other valid reason.
Wow. So what did you witness when you were there at LAD? Just again, if sort of briefly.
You want to talk about man? I mean, you know well that
yeah, I do.
Man's inhumanity to man. That that you dehumanize people. You know, it was a locked ward that I worked in with 35 adult men in different stages of dress and undress and ability to speak or do things for themselves. And on a good day, there were 5 of us, and most days there were 3 staff to do total care for people. It was quite shocking, and people were pretty much incarcerated. You didn't, you know, on a rare occasion you could take folks out of the building, but that was their life.
Before I wrote about LAD for the Providence Journal did a number of investigations, and the photographs that were shown were horrifying, and the conditions there were horrifying. Maggie, back to you. What do you remember about living there? What are some of the things that stick in your mind today, these many, many years later?
Well, going to the buildings to feed people. Like, one ward was with people with no clothes on, eating out of the, the tin bowls.
Almost like animals, right? Or dogs or something, yeah.
It was sad.
So Maggie worked, while she was a resident there and confined there, she would go out and help other people in different buildings and different wards.
So Maggie, a couple more questions. When you got out of LAD, you did teaching. Tell us about that.
Oh, I worked, let's see, first place was Wakefield School.
Okay.
I worked there with a person, a woman, well, a young kid. And then from there, I worked with a young person.
Okay.
No, I liked it because it helped him to develop, or helped her develop more about, doing things and being a little independent.
What was it like working on this film? And you have a tremendous role in the film, producing it, appearing and whatnot. What was it like working on it for you as somebody who had been at LAD and then out of LAD for many, many years?
Well, I think it's great that, did it, because it teaches other people that don't know about what's going on or what happened to other people. Like they could go to work and then leave. You had to stay there and stuff,
Final question. During the making of the film, you got to go back to LAD.
Yeah.
What was that like?
A little depressing, but I was happy that it closed. I don't wish that on anybody.
And after you went back and visited, it's been completely demolished. There's absolutely nothing left of it. There's a memorial, and there are gravestones not too far from the area, but there is absolutely nothing left of LAD.
Except the memories and the telling of the story in the film.
And the film. Another reason why this film is so incredible and so important to everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that is all the time we have. I'm G. Wayne Miller, and I thank you for joining us for Conversations with New England Filmmakers.